Hello, everyone, and thank you for once again tuning in to the Overtimers podcast. I'm your host, Zach, with once again my co-hosts, Andrew and David. You guys, it was a crazy last few days in fantasy football for everything that's gone on between trades and cuts.
Yeah, it's been wild. Love this is one of the busiest cut periods that I've seen in recent history. So it's going to be fun to talk about.
Right.
What do you
happening? Trades and everything.
I mean, Carlos Hyde moving to the Texans now. I think maybe he'll cut into Duke Johnson's workload a little bit. I don't know. I mean, he didn't look too impressive with the Chiefs there in preseason so far. And then Lamar Miller and Andrew Luck out now. I had a guy that actually he drafted both of those in his league. And Lamar and Andrew were his starters. He said and it was in a 14-person team league.
Yeah, and that's tough. You always want to try and push your meaningful drafts as late as possible in the preseason, and that is why, because no one could have projected that Andrew Luck was going to retire at 29 years old. So, but for the Colts players, I kind of want to see what you guys' thoughts are. I definitely think it's a hindrance. Well, obviously it's a hindrance on every piece there, but how far are you guys thinking you're going to drop the Marlon Mack and Ebron and Hilton? Those are probably the big three pieces that you were going to be using in that offense. How far do you see yourself dropping them, David?
For TY, it's only a couple spots because they're still going to be in a negative game script. Obviously, their win count went down for this year with Luck retiring, so they're going to have to throw more often, I believe. Marlon Mack, I think, takes maybe the biggest hit because there was a split that showed his stats when the Colts were leading versus when they were trailing, and he had over 15 points per game when they were leading and less than 10 points per game when they were trailing.
Yeah, that's the biggest one for me. And then the only other thing I could see cutting in or possibly changing a little bit is, do you see Nyheim Hines taking a bigger role with those negative game scripts? What do you think, Zach?
I don't know about that. I think it's going to be a whole different offense now with like Jacoby Brissett behind the running the offense now. But as for Marlon Mack now, I've done probably 5 drafts this last week. I have not taken him in any draft at all. I pass him up every time. T.Y. Hilton, I've kind of put him towards a low wide receiver 2 or my wide receiver 3. I don't know if Jacoby Brissett's going to have a new favorite. Like, I know Andrew Luck liked T.Y. Hilton, but is he going to be more tight end friendly? Or, I just don't feel that offense is going to run the same as with Andrew Luck at all. It's just, I think the Colts really, their stock dropped huge after Andrew Luck getting hurt. Now, Lamar Miller's
team went down, I think. Everyone on the team's value just went down. Big time.
The one thing, Duke Johnson now, on the other hand, I see him going, it's insane this last week, you guys, like I said, I did 5 drafts this week, and he is going, I feel way above where he should be going. Like, people are all of a sudden just jumping on him like he's going to be the next big running back. I had one where the guy took him in the 3rd round. Like, he passed up Derrick Henry. I'm like, he's still Duke Johnson. He had a chance to prove himself in Cleveland. He did all right, but, in a full-point PPR, he might be all right. But, I don't know what you guys think. I don't think he's round 3 material yet. He's just...
No, definitely not. I would say that situation is a hold for me, especially with Carlos Hyde showing up in... I didn't love his production in the preseason, but I would not be grabbing or looking to grab many of the Houston running backs now. They did also add Kenny Stills in a trade with Miami and boost their offensive line with Laramie Tunsil, who is famous for the gas mask draft debacle. But I don't think the backfield is one that I really want to gravitate towards now. I do think Stills is a usable fantasy option now, where he was maybe going to be buried for me in someone who you couldn't really look at. But Houston's offense might move the ball better. Well, they're definitely going to better than Miami's offense, so Stills might have some utility this year.
Now,
I think people who owned Hyde should be all right with this. Like, he's going into a role where he can see more carries as the early down back, and Duke Johnson, of course, is still going to get the receiving role and maybe even more. But like you said, that offensive line even got upgraded with Tunsil and their first-round draft pick in this spring's draft. So it's not awful for a running back in that situation. Deshaun Watson alone, they added receiving power, added offensive line protection. His value goes up even higher, and he has a case for the top overall quarterback this year.
I think so
with
too.
all the pieces.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Now, also, we got a lot to go over today. I mean, we got, for our listeners out there, we'll be posting our rankings to start off the season, which are totally free. Everyone loves free stuff. So this way, if anyone hasn't done their drafts yet or are waiting till right before Thursday Night Football, you kind of got a cheat sheet to go off of. And one of them kind of falls into these trades that actually, one of the players, because we had a few that were a little off on. And Larry Tunsil's trade with, I think, Kenyon Drake, David had a little higher than us, me and Andrew. And I mean, now David, with Larry Tunsil going to the Texans, I don't see where Kenyon Drake for you fell to 13. You have him at 13, where me and Andrew, I have him at 37, and Andrew has him at 31.
Well, first off, you guys have him disgustingly low, and that's
oh,
not doing
come on.
justice at all.
It's the Dolphins. You say the Dolphins.
Last year. In PPR format last year, he finished as running back 14. Frank Gore is now gone with his 168 vacated touches and receptions. Ballage has been one of the worst running backs that I've seen from an efficiency standpoint. So you cannot trust that guy. And like you said, the Dolphins are awful. So they're going to have a negative game script in almost every game. I don't know, are they going to have the worst record? They're fighting for the first overall pick this year. And negative game scripts heavily benefit receiving running backs, which Drake is. He has that role locked up. They got new coaches in from New England with Brian Flores, who love to use the running backs. Look at Sony Michel and James White and any other New England running back in the last 4 or 5 years. And someone on that team always pops. A lot of times it's a running back that can catch the ball, a.k.a. Kenyon Drake. And he's arguably the best offensive player left on the team. I don't know how you can argue with the vacated touches, though. Like, Crinkle is gone. That's 168 touches that are gone. Someone's going to carry them.
And, David, when we kind of put this together, I told you I have him disgustingly low. I know my ranking is too low of him. But I do just see, as a fantasy player, I want someone who I can somewhat predict when their games are going to be productive. And last year he only had 7 games where he was fantasy relevant, being a double-digit producer. And then in 7 games he produced less than 6 points. And that was one of the reasons I think I kind of ranked off of my willingness to draft them. Now, the thing is we are going to see, we have a week until, 5 days until the games are real and you can't draft anymore, but his value in drafts is crazy. He's the 35th, 34th running back off the board. He's going to produce more than that now. So, David, before you even started with your stuff today, you were already flipping me. So I'm kind of hedging my bets a little. I do think I have Kenyon Drake a bit low. So.
How about you, Zach?
No. Dolphins, blah. I mean, I'm sorry for any of our listeners that are Dolphins fans out there, but To score points also, you got to get in the end zone. I do not see the Dolphins putting up 20-some points a game and Kenyon Drake getting those touchdowns. I mean, if he gets, I'd say on the high side, if he can get 6 to 7 rushing touchdowns this year, I mean, they're selling the team right now. They sold Kenny Stills, they sold Larry Tunsil. Today they traded a linebacker away. I mean, right now they're in sell mode. I do not see this team. They're going to be horrific this year. And I do not see Kenyon Drake producing like last year. I think this is going to be a sad year for the Dolphins and for Kenyon Drake. I'm not drinking that juice at all right now.
Right. The only argument I would say to that is they weren't fantastic last year and he still produced. So
I do think, David, you're on the right path for sure. I have him too low, and I will adjust him, but 13
I might have him too high.
It's still a little rich for my taste.
Bold calls is what helps you in fantasy football. This is probably my favorite call of the season.
Now I know you guys both had Nick Chubb on your list a little bit lower than me. I know, Andrew, you had him at 13, and David had me at Nick Chubb at 12, and I put him at 6. I mean, I love this guy. I think he's going to be a fantasy breakout this year. I mean, I look at him last year. He only got the ball 192 times. You look at James Conner. He had 215, and David Johnson had 258. Now, yardage-wise, in those 192 attempts for Nick Chubb, he had 996 yards. James Conner on 215 attempts had 973. David Johnson on 258, 940. I mean, Nick Chubb beat them out yardage-wise. You give him those attempts like James Conner and David Johnson had, he'll run all over them for fantasy value. Touchdown-wise, he scored one more touchdown than David Johnson. He had 8 rushing touchdowns. I mean, this guy has like so much upside compared to those guys. And he got the ball last year. I mean, and on top of that, he has so many offensive weapons around him that'll open up the running game for him.
So yeah, I get where you're coming from. Neither of us have him buried, but you're just rich with the 6 posting. He finished as the 15 last year, and only got work after the 6th week of the season. So he did have a limited role early on. The one thing you want to see with your running backs to finish as a high-end one is you want to see them catching the ball out of the backfield, and he only had 20 receptions last year. I know Duke Johnson is gone, but are they really going to utilize him out of the backfield? Is that his role? And without those valuable touches, we know that receptions for running backs are more valuable than carries. So will he really break into that top tier of running backs there at the 6? That's, I think, the argument that David and I were making were do you trust him as the number 6 overall back?
So now, like you said, he only got really utilized at week 6. So if he would have had those other 6 weeks where he had 20 receptions at that point on, could he have been a 40 reception back possibly? I mean, there's 6 weeks there that are kind of fill in the blank on a huge question mark there.
And if that's the question mark you're looking at, what about after week 8 when Kareem Hunt comes back? He's been shown to be used out of the backfield. He's been shown to be a bell cow of a running back. So I just hedge my bets away from him this season.
Yeah, I think if Hunt wasn't there, I would maybe put him up even 3-4 spots. But coming back at week 10 in fantasy playoffs for some, starting in week 13 or 14, that's terrifying. And Hunt is a proven receiving back that Chubb isn't. So he might eat into even more of his workload. I love him through weeks 1 through 8 because I don't know that there's anybody else there. But again, like Andrew said, the lack of receiving potential is a bit scary, but they could always use him more, and it seems like they're going to, at least early in the season. But why go through the effort of picking up Hunt if you're not going to use Hunt? Even with all of his off-field issues, they took all that risk just to bring on Hunt, even knowing they had Nick Chubb there. So I think that as an organization just says something about how they're going to utilize these backs a little bit. Although I do like them until week 10 when Hunt comes back.
So, Andrew, I was kind of shocked here. I saw when I saw you had Big Ben as the low for us at 20, and then I put him at 11, and David put him in the top 10 at 7. How can you not justify him being a top 15 quarterback this year?
Right. And, well, because just look at 2017 finish. He was the quarterback 18. This kind of goes into my philosophy at quarterback a little bit. I think he's fine. I don't really want to draft Big Ben, but there will be times where I'll see him on the waiver wire and I'll pick him up for a home game. That's one thing. His stats are awesome at home. This guy, there's something about his bed that works for him and hotel beds don't, because this guy produces at home. So that's kind of a stat in his favor. But the thing is, it's just, I don't see him projecting to that top tier QB1, the guy that I want on my team all season. So that's why I kind of have him buried. Also, he lost the best wide receiver in the league right now. I know AB has his flaws, mostly off the field, but that guy is an absolute freak. Not that he doesn't have talent around him in Moncrief and Juju, but they aren't AB. That's kind of another hindrance against him. So the other thing being, he threw for 5,235. There's going to be a small regression in this offense, and I'm putting that in. So those are the reasons why I have him lower.
I mean,
agree. The guy
losing AB hurts a lot, but that offense is just so high powered. It's hard to believe they're going to score a ton less. Yeah, he's going to regress some, but all the way to quarterback 20 seems like a little far for me. I have higher than both of you guys at 7, which he may not live up to either, but Juju Smith-Schuster still there, and he's obviously incredible. They brought in Dante Moncrief. They still got James Washington, a couple other guys. I think the offense still puts up points, although he will likely not hit his numbers from last year, that's for sure. What do you think, Zach?
I totally agree with David on this. I mean, Big Ben, especially, it seems like when he plays behind, he puts up his best numbers even. I mean, the guy can throw it downfield like nobody's business. And on top of that, still, James Conner proved last year that he can be a decent RB1. He also has Juju Smith, who I think he may not end up being Antonio Brown for him, but he's still going to be a solid wide receiver 1. He has Vance McDonald, who we'll talk about that in a little bit. I mean, maybe he'll pan out to be a okay tight end that can catch for him. But Dante Moncrief, I mean, he could maybe pan out too. But, I mean, I think Big Ben still will put up solid numbers where you can trust him as a good QB1. I mean, he's done it before, and he is a good quarterback. I mean, if you want a guy that's a solid guy that, is peace of mind type quarterback that it's not like you're rolling the dice with, Big Ben's a good one to go with. I mean, I didn't put him in my top 10, but I felt like if you're at the back of the draft for looking for a QB1, he's a good one to roll with. So,
yeah, and for me, he's a streamable candidate. He'll be usable, but he's just not a guy that I was looking to draft in most of my drafts this year. So leading into the next guy here, Zach, you have Vance McDonald all the way down at 20. So David has him at 8. I have him at 6. So I know I knocked Big Ben, but I do think he can support a receiver and a tight end of higher value. So Vance was the tight end 12 last year. and there are a ton of vacated targets there in Pittsburgh with AB leaving.
And Jesse James too, the other tight end.
Right. And I think that Vance has that big play capabilities with his size and speed. He can be a red zone target. The other thing being, just the receiving targets that are going to be there. I just see Vance having a bigger year than you're projecting. Why do you have him buried at 28?
2 words, injury prone. If I am going to get a tight end as my tight end 1, I would not draft this guy for my tight end 1 because there's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 seasons where he's ended up injured throughout the year. 9 seasons where he's missed 2 or 3 games at least. He's ended up on the IR 3 years of those 9. I mean, to trust a guy that I'm going to say is my tight end 1, to me that's scary. I don't know about that. I mean, it's just too big of a risk for me for saying that I'm going to put him in my top 10 and just be like, yep, I'm good with him. Also, I mean, Heath Miller, he was an okay tight end, but Big Ben, you don't have him, in the past, where's the proof that, hey, this is my guy I go to in the red zone and everything for a tight end? Normally he's always targeted in the past Le'Veon, Antonio, or Juju. I don't see the, proof in statistic-wise, I guess.
I think the proof was just in what you said. There's no Antonio and there's no Le'Veon anymore. So there's got to be, someone's got to catch the ball if they throw even 80% of what they did last year.
Well, James Conner and Juju, they fill those roles.
Juju was there last year. So
but I'm saying, as for that Antonio Brown and James Conner.
Let's say he misses some games. Let's say the games he's healthy. What do you think of him? Would you take him on a points per game basis?
If I was drafting for a season, no. I would maybe take him as my backup. I have taken him actually as my backup. There's a few best ball leagues that I have this last week that I actually took him in. And I was like, yeah, I can see him sitting, but I took a tight end before him. Because that question mark of saying tight end 1 with all those histories of injuries to him between his shoulder, hip, knee, it's too scary for me to say I'm going to invest my entire season into this tight end.
Yeah, I think he does have some question marks, and I would do the same though. If I have him as my starting tight end, I have a backup tight end on my roster in redraft leagues. In best ball, that's of course different.
And I don't even worry
maybe got backup.
Yeah, I don't even worry about backing up a tight end because other than those top 3, you're playing for upside at tight end. Last year, the tight end landscape was a cesspool. There wasn't much to use other than those top 3 guys. So you're going to have games where Vance McDonald is going to disappear via for injury or other causes. So I see him still being a very usable and has that upside to break into the tight ends that you wish you had on your roster all season.
Right. Yep.
Now, David, this next one here for where we were off, this one just makes me kind of vomit that he made your top 20. Sterling Shepard, me and Andrew both have him at 40, and you have him at 20. This is just, the Giants for crying out loud. I think the only guy on there that's even rankable in the top 20 is Evan Ingram and Saquon Barkley.
So, yeah, you guys have them pretty low, I will say that. But as Andrew said earlier, some of these rankings are kind of based on where you find value, and I think the value at the end of the draft when all these other receivers are gone and Sterling Shepard's hanging around, that he does have the capacity to turn into a wide receiver 20. Saying that no receiver is going to catch a ball there and become fantasy relevant is a little ridiculous, I think, to have the top giant receiver at wide receiver 40 after all these other guys. and that's their top one, whether that being Golden Tate or Sterling Shepard, who I believe is going to step in. But Odell Beckham's gone now. And in Sterling Shepard's games with Beckham gone, his targets went from 6.3 with Beckham to 7.8 targets per game without him. So the argument of number one coverage rolling over him has already happened last year, and each year that Beckham has been hurt, that Shepard's in the game, and he still produces better in all those games. He has a career points per game of 11.7, so he gets knocked a little more than he deserves. He's a pretty usable wide receiver for fantasy. That's not bad, averaging nearly 12 points per game. It's not fantastic. I'm not saying he's a wide receiver one. I'm just saying he has tremendous value where he's at right now. And if Daniel Jones does take over and looks as good as he has this preseason, he could turn into something really good. Yeah, Ingram and Barkley are going to be there, but they were there with Beckham, and Shepard still produced a decent season for his value again last year even. So why do you guys hate him so much? Just because Giants and Eli Manning, or what?
Yeah. That's exactly it. I put in a little joke into our doc here where I said that he's going to be the fourth option for Eli Manning with it going Saquon, Evan Ingram, and then a few to the other team. And then finally
I like that.
So it's just offense. That's why I have him low. And like you said, I do think he's going to have some utility on offense, on fantasy rosters this year, but I just see, honestly, I think Golden Tate's a better receiver. So when he comes back from his suspension, I just see him kind of being washed away and not being, I don't see you being super jacked to have Sterling Shepard on your team all season. And you don't have him ranked.
You're excited about 30-year-old Golden Tate and a 4-game suspension?
No, I'm not excited about either.
If those two were in a horse race, I'd put money on Golden Tate. I mean, they are...
Well, it's a good thing we're talking fantasy football then, and who catches the ball and produces points.
I mean, honestly, Giants are just disgusting. I mean, Eli Manning's disgusting. The whole situation's disgusting, besides Saquon and Evan Ingram. I haven't bought no shares of Sterling Shepard yet this year. I have over 20-some drafts I'm in. 20-some leagues, actually. And I have yet to touch him in any of them. I
got him in about almost half of my leagues. And in auction leagues, he's going for $1 or $2. That's basically free with upside. So just think about value. Even if you don't like him, there's value there.
All right, let's speed these up a little bit here. Let's move into, we have, let's see. Oh, man, it's me up next.
Chris Carson at running back 7 for Andrew.
Yeah, man, let's do this. Let's jump right into this.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. Jeez.
Why are you guys hating on Chris Carson? Huh? I mean, the guy was the running back 14 last year, and they're saying that he's going to catch the ball out of the backfield now. And not only that, he's a running back 14 with only 14 games played. This is Seattle's identity. Chris Carson is their game. He is their game this year. Honestly, I just see him being the bell cow until it doesn't shoot out that way where Rashad Penny actually has some value. My projection is Chris Carson is the gem of fantasy football this year because he's going in the 3rd round. And I do think he's going to be a running back 1. I just see the best case scenario for running backs in the preseason is that they don't get the ball, right? They aren't even played. The second best thing, they're barely played. He got 3 to 5 touches in all their preseason games, and then they put him to the bench because they know what they have. They know they want to use Chris Carson, and they're going to use him.
So what I would say for that, so we had a discussion about Nick Chubb earlier saying how he doesn't touch the ball if we don't like him as much. And Chris Carson doesn't really catch the ball that much. I know the coaches said they want to use him more, but I think that was Mike Davis's role last year and to some extent Rashad Penny. And it's going to be the Carson and Penny show with Carson getting the majority of the touches. But who gets the receptions that are more valuable? I think those are going to fall into Penny's boat. And to have Carson at running back 7, he's going to have to absorb more than a timeshare to do that. Most of those top backs have the workhorse role locked down, whether it's even Dalvin Cook or Le'Veon Bell, even in the later RB ones, they have that workhorse role locked down, whereas I'm not convinced yet that Carson does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. The hesitation is there, but they're showing all the signs in this preseason that he's going to be their guy. And they're saying that he can and will be used out of the backfield. So that's why I have him so high. I'm planting my flag in Chris Carson this year. He's my boy.
Oh, jeez. I don't know. I mean, I've had him in previous years, and he's, just to say, like, if you're in a 12-team league, that he's going to be your RB1, and that's who you're going with right away in a 12-team league when you're drafting, that's bold. I can't do it. I mean, in previous years when I've had him, he's just kind of an average RB2. I mean, I can take him as my second running back. If you're in a 12-team league, taking him as your second running back off the board, I could buy into that. That's what I mean by my RB2.
Do that because he's going in the 3rd round.
So that's why I ranked him where I did, was because I figured he would be like my second running back I'd take off the board. I don't know if I could pull the trigger and be like, I'm going to take him as my first one off the board.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. I get where you're coming from. Like, you're hearing all these positive vibes, Andrew, and everything. But hearing the words from the coach and then seeing it on the field are going to be two different things. I mean, sure. Every coach could say, yeah, our running back's going to get all the touchdowns this year at the goal line, and they switch it up and then they bring in a goal line back. I mean, it's just, I'd have to see it first before I just would say I want to go with him as my first RB off the board. I can pull the trigger as a second RB off the board, but not the first.
I understand the upside though. Like, if Penny does not get used or panned out at all, then his value is going to skyrocket, like Andrew's saying.
Yep.
So, I know you guys, Andrew, I know you and David both were not as high on Mr. Brady here as me. I put him as one of my top 10. And Andrew, you had him at 15, and David, you had him at 20. I look at it this way, that he's so reliable. I mean, he is. If you're going to take a QB at the end of the draft, why not dive into Brady? I mean, it's like peace of mind at quarterback. And then you can take a guy that is like a risky one that's like, will he be good? Or he has a lot of upside, like Josh Allen. I mean, I feel that he's kind of that peace of mind quarterback where you know he's going to put up decent points every week for you. He may not put up as many as Mahomes by any means, but he's going to still do the job. I don't know what
for me. Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
I was just going to say, honestly, I'm fine with you taking Brady, but I see the offense taking a step back a little bit, even though it's Belichick. The guy's a genius. He's going to find a way. And Brady's immortal, so maybe he can just play until he's 100 years old. But they lost Gronk. The offense is going to run the ball. That's what they want to do. Sony Michel is one of the guys that we're all a little bit high on compared to others. And so I think that, yeah, Brady's going to be fine, but I just don't see him as a exciting or even a top-tier quarterback this season. So that's why I have him drop down into that quarterback 2 range. So,
yeah, for me, I don't think he even does that much. I think people might be confusing football success with fantasy success, because Tom Brady, one of the greatest quarterbacks, if not the greatest quarterback of all time. But from a fantasy perspective, that's not what really gets points. And to compare him to upside of Josh Allen, a guy who has insane rushing potential. Brady is about the exact opposite of that, where if he gets 1 yard in a game, that's impressive.
Hey,
so that's
if you look at,
and again, losing the receiving power, they're leaning on the running backs more and more every year that he ages. I don't see it for me.
If you look at his previous years, though, he's an average 4,000 yard guy for a quarterback. I think that's fairly decent. And then he has an average of 29 touchdowns the last 5 years. I mean, he hasn't dipped lower than, I don't think, 28 or 27 touchdowns in a year. I mean, the guy still puts up some
You're
solid
acting like that's fantasy good or something like that.
Well, no, I mean, but it's solid for insurance. I look at it as it's a good, if you're deciding to take a quarterback at the end of the draft, he's not a bad guy to fall on for your QB, is what I'm saying. That's why I put him at 9. I'm he's in the backer part of that starting quarterbacks.
I'll say it again. Don't just stream the quarterback position. Don't worry about who you draft. It's going to be fine. You can play the matchups. And, yeah, there are going to be matchups where Brady's going to put on a show. But I don't see him as a viable plug-and-play quarterback the rest of the season. So why don't we finish up with one last one that we have a big discrepancy on. Zach and I are on the same side here with I have Cooper Kupp ranked at 20. Zach has him at 18. And David, you got him buried all the way down at 37. What's going on, man? We see Woods finished as the wide receiver 10, Cooks at 13. Kupp finished at the 52nd receiver, but he only played 8 games, right? He was on pace for 112 targets and 12 touchdowns last year. And all reports out of camp have him being more explosive than he was last year. So is it injury? Is it just the offense itself? What do you see that pushes Cooper Kupp down to 37 for you?
So just like what you said there, I could care less about his injury history. I think he could play all year and still finish wide receiver 37. And if it's not him, it's going to be Robert Woods. And I'll tell you why. In the last 20 years, there's been one team to support 3 top 24 wide receivers, and that was Peyton Manning, the Hall of Famer, in 2004. You're telling me Jared Goff and the Rams are going to break history and do it again this year? I'm not convinced. And the problem with point per game and then extrapolating out through the season is Cooper Kupp had almost a league-leading 15% touchdown to reception rate. The guys that were above him were like Tyler Rocket, who caught a touchdown on every 5 passes, it seemed like. And Tyler Boyd, I think, is another one up there. And Calvin Ridley had a bunch too. Yeah. But those paces don't maintain. You see it from every year. You can look in the last 5 years and see receivers that catch a lot of touchdowns one year, to the point of outliers like Kupp is, they always come back to earth. And Kupp can't have that point per game per year, and Robert Woods and Brandon Cooks still maintain their wide receiver 10, wide receiver 14 position. The ball has to go somewhere. It can't go to all these guys at the same time. Cooks is incredibly consistent, 1,000-yard receiver, no matter what team he gets traded to every year.
Wow.
So he's always producing. Robert Woods, I think, is the better talent. Up at wide receiver 3, and for those reasons, that's why I don't think it's going to be top in the top 24.
When you get 4 take games guaranteed a year between the Cardinals and Niners, that puts up a lot of stats. Between you get to play the Cardinals twice and the 49ers twice this year, that puts up a lot of stats for you, I think, there.
You think that
do I need to say more?
Help out the passing?
Those are girly games for sure.
Yeah, they're girly games.
And I get what you're saying, David, with the offense not sustaining it, but the NFL is changing, man. And McVay is kind of at the forefront of it. If you watch his offense, he's spreading the ball all over the field. And I see Goff only threw 32 touchdowns last year. He didn't produce this 3-headed monster at receiver throwing 50 touchdowns like Peyton Manning had to do, right? So Yeah, I do see a regression of his touchdown rate. That was ungodly. But I don't have him ranked as a 1, right? Like I have him on that 1-2 or that 2-3 cusp, and you have him all the way back. He's not even a wide receiver 3 for you. That's where I have to kind of pump the brakes there a little bit on your hatred of Cooper Kupp. Is that he's a usable player. You have him ranked lower than Sterling Shepard, and that's
for sure.
Dude, I don't know how you make this happen, but I'll bet you that their fantasy finishes are that Kupp is better. Like that, I don't know how to make that happen, but we're gonna find a way. We'll figure it out off the air.
The first bet of the podcast, I will say the Rams do not support 3 top 24 wide receivers in fantasy this year. I will throw $50 down to whoever wants to take it on the other end here.
See, now I'm a little scared. I don't know why. I love the idea. I wanted to go straight up Sterling Shepard versus Kupp, but we'll figure something out. And we'll announce it on the next podcast. How about that?
Sounds good.
All right. Well, something to look forward to there for our listeners is the bet that we'll come up with here. Any closing comments for you guys?
I would say in our following podcasts in the near future here for our listeners out there, we'll be giving you guys a few tidbits on stardoms and situms in the future here. So this way, after week 1 here in the following weeks, you guys can get a little advice from us on some of the guys that aren't obvious starters and situms. And, yeah.
Right. Yep, I'd agree with Zach. We got stardom situms coming up. And one thing we forgot to touch on early in the episode was LaShawn McCoy going to the Chiefs on a $4 million contract. If you're a Damian Williams owner, I'd be shitting my pants right about that. Because that is about the worst news you could have received today.
That's not great.
So what about Darwin Thompson, though, now? Do you just start dumping him, or do you still hang on to him? I mean, because I know there's tons of people that have been, like, buying him up left and right. Do you think LaShawn McCoy is going to be the, like, back? Or do you think they just brought him in to compete?
I think it's a committee for sure. It has all the makings of it. You don't pay a guy $4 million to sit on the bench. That's the truth. That's not going to happen. But Darwin Thompson, though, I think, like you said, people are going to bail on him, and he's going to be maybe a free ad, and he could turn into something on the offense if one of the other guys don't shake out. And his use in the preseason, he looked incredible. So if he's a free ad, I'd maybe consider stashing him just to see what happens. But other than that, it's not good.
Yep. He's a firm hold for me in every dynasty possible. If for some reason he becomes available on the waivers, pick him up. He's going to have a usage in this offense. In redrafts, he's a light stash. If you need the roster spot, that's going to get crowded. I think he is the third option now. If you have a need somewhere else, you might be able to get by with cutting him for need. I wouldn't just cut him to add somebody else.
Well, I'd like to thank all of our listeners for tuning in to the Overtimers once again today. Please like us and follow us on Twitter at OvertimersFF. And we look forward to talking to you guys in the future. Feel free to message us with any of your fantasy football questions you guys have. I know we've gotten a few so far. And we will see you guys again next week.
Thanks for listening, guys.